Hi, this is Kerry Artak with Wicked Stocks, bringing you your weekly Wicked Market Leaders, our YouTube channel weekly analysis of Mag 7 type of stocks. We cover about 10 or 11 of them. You can see the list here. I always start with Microsoft, and this is once again for the week of Monday, August 10th. It was the settlement a couple of weeks ago above this 460.70 channel top that indicated 530.67. You know, with present volatility, we could see 530.67 today potentially. Did I say today? I meant this week. 530.67 is a channel structure that may contain buying into September. And from here, the market can grow overbought, fall back into the low 460s within, well, present volatility, 3 to 5 weeks, but I think a more relaxed, more restrained volatility within a couple of months. So we could trade inside of this band potentially for the rest of the year. Now, if we do close above 530.67 this week or in the coming weeks, then we launch another buy signal to 594.19. And that, once again, this could be 3 to 5 weeks with present volatility, but a more historic volatility that we've seen over the last, year or so. This is probably a 2 to 3 month rally. By the end of the year, 594.19 in reach. 594.14 is up. 594.19 is a 4-year channel top that can contain buying on a quarterly basis, possibly well into 27. We could fall away from here, and we would be in this sort of new normal long term if Microsoft were to close above 594.19. Last thing I'm going to say about Microsoft is if we do fall away and close this week back below 460.70, the threat is by the end of the year, within several months, we find ourselves back in the 340s, 350s. Now, we'll map out a more precise target if this were to occur, but for right now, I need to see what the high is going to be, and I just think that there's more upside here. 530.67 is likely over the next few weeks. Moving on to Meta. Now, Meta had, it did close above this descending channel top at 649.13 about a month and a half ago, but by a hair inside the required 1% zone. I like to see a settlement beyond these long-term line studies by 1% at least to really sort of validate a reliable buy signal. That did not occur. We fell away the very following week, and we've been falling away really for the most recent 3 or 4 weeks. Now, last week was an inside week. I do think 507.40 remains in play following that sell-off. And let me jump to this chart, actually. 507.40 is the long-term rising channel bottom, but you also have this new sort of mostly horizontal channel structure at 511.89. And if tested this week, this is a fabulous area to step into a long position that lasts not only for the rest of August, but for the rest of the year. We can round up from here. We've got the 649.13 as that descending channel top represented here as a horizontal line. And I'm going to represent it again as a horizontal line to show you what our resistance is. So if we're talking really into the fourth quarter, you're buying the low 500 region, 507.40 to 511.89. This solid day trade, 3 to 5 day, 3 to 5 week, and really even 3 to 5 month position that you can establish in that low 500 region. And then upside, wrong chart, bear with me, upside, I do have 649.13 represented here as a horizontal line, but I really think it is this new horizontal channel top that is based in part on the low from a couple of weeks ago at 695.75. That is our true ceiling through September, through October. We can fall away from here if tested, and is our aggressive buy signal through the rest of the year. If over the next month or two we can close above 695.75, we should within a month or two test 796.25. That is the all-time high. We could certainly have trouble here, and I'm going to leave it at that, but I do think there's the very real possibility for longer-term bullish continuation well into 27 if we were to close above 695.75. So to summarize Meta, I think we're in a two-sided framework through the rest of the year where you're buying the low 500s and you're selling the mid 690s, and then we have a directional signal outside of that zone, certainly on a longer-term basis. SPCX, nice rally last week. We came pretty close last week to testing this objective, this 5/8 wave count. Basically, it's B minus A times 5/8 minus A again, and that takes you to 102.19. Last week's low was 104.83. This is also a key reversal low, new all-time low for SPCX, which is not saying much, and then closing above the previous week's high. In the process, we did close above this descending channel top at 122.57. So if we're looking with present volatility, this is like a 1 to 2 week, maybe even a 3 to 5 day swing trade where you're buying 122.57, assuming we open Monday above it, and then you're taking profits at 153.12. We can top out at 153.12 for the week and even fall away into later August, finding ourselves in this band here for the next few weeks. Closing above 153.12 is not a significant long-term buy signal. I'm now reserving that for this structure here, this extreme channel top that takes into account the IPO low from late June. It is at 174.32. It lines up well with the low of that high, which was significant. So I do think if we close above 153.12, which I showed in the last frame, that within another week or so, we push into this zone. This is our key resistance really for the rest of the year. We can fall away from here, September, October, fall away from here. But if we close above 174.32, if you're looking at going long SpaceX and you want it to be a long-term play, that is to say through the rest of the year, I really think it comes down to 174.32. Closing above that, expect 225.64, the all-time high within a matter of several weeks. But I do think we can push onward to new highs following a settlement above 174.32. Until then, this is a zone to respect for its ability to contain longer-term buying pressures. Downside, if we close back below 122.57 this week, and I'll take us back to this chart, we should then see the wave count once again at 102.19, closing below 102.19, FYI, 73.04 likely within a matter of weeks. This is a solid support area that is basically the full swing, a B minus A again. All right, on to Alphabet. Alphabet, this is one of these classic examples of throwing off a significant sell signal to be rejected the following week with that open right at it, actually maybe even above it, is a reversal sign. So reverse we did. Last week's rally, though, let me jump to that chart. So before I leave this, yes, if we close below 332.74, we re-enter a long-term sell signal that does allow 244.44 within 2 to 3 months or so, but we're nowhere near that right now. I'm going to call this still holding 332.74, and in the process, we also pushed above this descending channel top last week at 362.71. We need to close above 362.71 in Alphabet to signal this 441.37. This could be a 3 to 5 week blast. This could also take the better part of 2 months, but closing this week above 362.71, I see nothing to be but long Alphabet and anticipating this 441.37 formation within a couple of months, climbing gradually and able to contain monthly, possibly quarterly buying pressures when tested. And I'll leave it at that. But holding below 362.71 does indeed allow a retest of 332.74, possibly this week, where we could bottom out through August and into September and round up again. Once again, closing below 332.74 does allow 244.44 by the end of the year. Amazon basically tested our target last week. This is a significant zone of long-term resistance between 288.81 and 296.73. You've got this channel. Goes back to April 25. This is like a 16, 17-month channel in itself. This channel is the better part of 4 years at 296.73. This zone can contain buying for the rest of the year, and we basically have reached it now following the settlement above 258.57 a couple of weeks ago. This was an incredible reversal week. So if I were to map out a strategy for Amazon through the month of August, through the month of September, you're selling the upper 280s, mid 290s, and you're buying the upper 250s. We could trade inside of this area for the next 2 or 3 months. I don't have a target mapped out yet if we close above 296.73. I just don't see that happening this week. Famous last words, right? But just know that if we close above 296.73 this week, there is no compelling reason to be short Amazon. You do want to be long Amazon. I just don't have a long-term target mapped out yet. If we close back below 258.57 this week, and that's not going to happen, but if over the next few weeks we do, then we re-enter a sell signal that should result in this newly formed rising channel bottom at 227.49 within maybe 3 to 5 weeks, where we could bottom out through the rest of the year. On to Taiwan Semiconductor. We spiked a couple weeks below this long-term channel bottom that goes back to the April 25 low, 16, 17-month channel structure that really defines this entire move at 400.84. Closing below it looks pretty ugly for TSM. As we move through the rest of the year, we could see 279.64 in the closing days of the year itself. But until then, we remain, upward momentum remains intact long-term and does allow the channel top, which I'm going to show in the next chart here, in the low 500s, 501.50 in the coming months. Now, we do have this near-term 405.45. This is a solid level to buy, and you've also got 400.84 to back it up. 400.84 is once again the long-term channel bottom. So you've got the very low 400 area to buy into now, if only for the next 3 to 5 days up to 439.10. But once again, I think you can hold a long position over the next couple, 2-3 months. We can find ourselves in this low 500 region. That becomes clarified if we close this week above 439.10. That signals this 501.05 by the end of September or sooner. So closing above 439.10 is a go-long strategy for a 3 to 5 week rally into the low 500 region where we could top out for the rest of the year. But if you're a 3 to 5 day swing trader, you can buy the low 400s, sell the upper 430s all week long. Closing above 439.10, don't get caught short. Into September, you want to be long above 439.10, aggressively so into the low 500 region. Let's move on to Intel. These are just, I'm not even going to spend time here. Let me jump to this chart. Let's jump to the near term first, and I'll cover the big picture. So we threw off a buy signal, short term only last week with the settlement above 95.15. If you're a 3 to 5 day swing trader, you can buy 95.15. You also have 97.90, which is the high of the low. We're also above that. Buying 95.15, expecting now 112.51 this week. We can top out here through August into September and fall away, possibly all the way back into the upper 60s, lower 70s within a couple of months of doing so. But if we do close above 112.51 this week, we retest within 2 to 3 weeks, 3 to 5 weeks, say by the end of September at the latest, this 139.57 level. 139.57, now I'll take it back to the long-term chart, is this long-term wave count that actually contained roughly the June highs. That is A minus B. This is like the 2000 high minus the 2009 low, and you flip that on its head, and that takes you to 139.57. That would be expected within 3 to 5 weeks now of closing above 112.51. Until then, 112.51 is your short sale area or your profit-taking area on a long position. That may have been established last week with the settlement above 95.15. We can fall away from here back to 95.15 within a week. We can fall away from 112.51 by the end of September back into the 68.18 to 71.58 region. 71.58 all day long is a long-term itself, is almost a 20-year channel top. So this is a solid area to buy into, not only on a near-term 3 to 5 week basis, but perhaps through the rest of the year. I'll take you back to this chart to just sort of underscore that zone. Solid long-term support down here that can contain selling through the rest of the year. If we close above 112.51 this week, you can forget about even seeing this anytime soon. Let's move on to Broadcom. Broadcom threw off a nice near-term buy signal above 382.21 last week. Now expecting 448.67. We might see that this week. We could top out here through the rest of August and fall away. Just know that holding above 350.35 maintains a clear bullish bull trend, really, framework as we move through the rest of the year. If we close back below 382.21 this week, I do expect a test next week of 350.35, where we can bottom out through the rest of the year and continue higher. This is, after all, roughly a 1.5 year channel structure that can contain selling through the rest of the year. Certainly, if we were to close below 350.35, I would expect at least the 251.88 high from December of 24 within a matter of 2 to 3 months. But there's no reason to go there right now. We've got a near-term buy signal. Closing above 448.67, by the way, this week is itself a reason to go long Broadcom if you aren't already. That would anticipate with present volatility 3 to 5 weeks or sooner, 518.83. 518.83 is the sister formation, is the channel top to the 350.35 channel bottom. And so holding above 350.35 will keep that low 500 region in reach in the coming months anyway. And if we close this week above 448.67 over the next 3 to 5 weeks, where long positions can be exited, you could even consider playing the short side here, believe it or not, because we could fall away to channel support that is presently in the 350s and climbing within a matter of 2 to 3 months or so. There's plenty of precedent for that kind of rotational behavior. Let's move on to AMD. We tested this channel bottom last week after closing below it the previous week. 523.38 is our ceiling, that below which this market can still fall over the next month or two into the 360.36 to 374.74 region, where we can bottom out for the rest of the year. 523.38 is preceded on the next chart by 507.98. And so if we close this week above 523.38, You might add 528 just for good keeping. That is the high of the low, but I do think closing above this descending channel top is buy signal enough, and certainly closing above 523.38, which is this former channel bottom. That is your go long strategy as we continue really through August into September. I'd say by the end of September, closing above 523.38, we could see a nice rally, plenty of precedent for that, into the 682.42 region. So your buy signal in AMD right now is a settlement above 523.38. Until then, stay out or stay short down into the 360s, 370s. Finally, Palantir threw off a significant buy signal last week. What a rally. Closing above this channel top at 165.71. We are now, with present volatility, this could be lickety split, but I do think this is more like a 3 to 5 month rally. Volatility will likely contract, I imagine, over the next few weeks, and this 242.27 level attainable by the end of the year. On the way up, we've got the 207.52 all-time high from November. I'm going to call that a 2 to 3 week target. We could double top there for a spell, fall away. Volatility could then contract. I'm sort of speculating here, of course, but bottom line, you should be long Palantir or out entirely. You're either out or you're long. And if you're long, you can anticipate, I think, 242.27 by the end of the year, I think, is realistic. Now, closing back below 165.71, or on an intra-week basis, let's say you close Monday below 165.71, within the week, 153.25 in reach. This can also contain longer-term selling pressures. It is a settlement this week below 153.25 that indicates a good August high, and we should, by the end of September or sooner, fall back to this low settlement price of 112.93. I will fine-tune this. If we do close this week below 153.25, I can already see that there are other elements down here. I just need to see what the high is before I commit to them. That pretty much rounds it out. Please click like, share, subscribe, check out wickedstocks.com. I will be back next week with another edition of Wicked Market Leaders. You have a great week.